Okay, please take your seats. We're going to be back in order here in a second.
Right.
Okay, can we have a report, please?
Yeah, Mayor, Mr. Hale has been working on some of the language to try to get clarified for the amendment, and I'll let him work through that with you right now.
Looking at the amended language of 5-106 subsection 2, which is the new language that was added since the last meeting. That language, I think, as you would like to have it amended, would read like this. Rent and charges for rooms, lodging, spaces, or accommodations in hotels within the town collected in calendar year 2020 are exempt from such tax if the amount collected is a fixed group rate, which is, let me change that. I'm going to take out group. Is a fixed rate that is committed to by the operator and is collected pursuant to written agreements signed and entered into by the operator before March 1, 2020, which agreements commit the operator to charge a specified rate for occupancy and committing, and then parens one little I, to a group sponsor for a block of 5 rooms or more, or 2 little I in parens, to a business entity, a negotiated rate for occupancy, comma, during 2020. Herein, quote, group or corporate rate, end quote, comma, provided that 1, copies of such written agreements are delivered by the operator to the town recorder on or before April 1, 2020, and 2, the operator's monthly tax return for the month the group or corporate rate is actually collected includes a listing of the total of the group or corporate rate nights collected and a cross-reference to the written agreement by the date and group or corporate sponsor pursuant to which the group or corporate rate was charged. And then the other amendment would be the effective date, which is on what you have, would be June 1, 2020.
Is there any mention of didacting certain, like the names of the companies or the groups on the written instruments? Did you mention? I was listening to it and.
Alderman, I don't think we have to have that specifically in the ordinance. I think that's just something that
So
they
it's a
can
policy.
That's an
Redact.
agreement we'll just have with them. I mean,
Okay.
we
redact
don't,
that.
we don't need to know
I'm
who
not
you're.
interested in putting y'all at risk or
The main
opening our
thing
own
we need to be
hotel,
able to do is just
then still under
verify.
contract, so. Okay.
What's that?
The main
That's
thing
good.
we need to do is just be able to, when we audit, verify the number of
That's fine.
folks matches what they have on their books.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to see a signed agreements.
And that's,
Yeah.
it's in here.
All right.
Okay, we have an amendment with an expiration. And let's see here, we need to go ahead and vote on the
Amendment.
amendment, and then we've called questions, so.
Can I s-
All,
oh, I'm sorry. Do we move? Okay.
yeah, it's
Okay.
all in favor, vote by saying yes on this,
Okay.
on the amendment.
For a
Yeah,
vote, Mayor?
let's roll call vote. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
The amendment, is that just the
What Tom
amendment?
just
Town rate,
Tom's
which
amendment?
I read.
accommodates the dates and the
Yep.
existing agreements, basically an exception for this year only.
Amended the wording that's in there.
All right.
Alderman Meyer.
I'm sorry, I just need to make sure, what am I voting? Am I voting for just the amendment
This is
that
the
Tom read?
amendment that Tom just
only?
read.
So I'm moving, so I agree with Tom's amendment, our amendment.
So that'd be yes.
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Poplin.
I'm going to pass.
It just has to be simple majority on the amendment, by the way. Okay, now we've got that out of the way, then,
So do I need to make a new motion again to approve as amended?
No.
Okay, we're
We
good
already
then.
have a
Okay.
We have a motion and a
we
second.
got a motion and a second on the floor, and I'll now ask a roll call vote for ordinance 20-01,
All right.
as stated.
Okay. Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Poplin.
No.
Okay. Let the record show that ordinance 20-01 has been approved on the second reading, 4-1. Okay, thank you. Ready for the next one, which will be approval of resolution R 2020-03.
Yes,
A
sir.
resolution to approve the remittance form for the town of Farragut hotel motel tax of the Farragut Municipal Code, and I will now ask for a motion to approve.
Move to approve resolution R 2020-03, a resolution to approve the remittance form for the town of Farragut hotel motel tax.
Second.
Got a motion with a second. We'll have some
Okay.
discussion now.
I got a question. Is this form going to have to be changed anyway because of the amendment we just made?
I don't think it would it?
Think so.
No.
Just want to confirm.
I don't see any date specific.
If there's any specific dates.
Their monthly form that they'll fill out
Okay.
to give to us.
All right. I have no further questions.
Okay. Anyone else have any discussion? Then again, I will ask for a roll call vote by our town recorder.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Poplin.
No.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. And this is 4-1 simple, this is a simple majority on this one. Okay, next will be public notice and first reading of ordinance 20-02. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 14, nuisance of the Farragut Municipal Code.
Good evening, members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I am Trevor Hobbs, the Assistant to the Town Administrator, and it is my pleasure and privilege to present to you Ordinance 20-02 on first reading. I am joined this evening by Holly Marlowe, our Code Enforcement Officer, as well as Mark Shipley, our the Director for the Community Development Department, and we're here happy to answer questions and provide additional clarification as needed. By way of background, the proposed amendment represents staff's best efforts to incorporate the regulatory intent of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and to allow the town to enforce its ordinances more effectively. Additional recommendations were received from our town attorney as well as consultants from the Municipal Technical Advisory Service and are incorporated in this proposed ordinance. Regarding the format of the ordinance, please note that while several sections of the existing Chapter 14 remain largely unaltered, there were extensive modifications to the language of the chapter, as well as the subject matter and the formatting, and additional language. And so that made a strike-through amendment very hard to read and follow. And so the amendment, the ordinance rather, is in the form of a substitution instead of a line-by-line text amendment. Now, in terms of the proposed layout, what you will see is that we added some general language to Article 1 that relates to the entire chapter. Here you will also see a unified section of definitions that apply to the entire chapter. Our original intent was to have one section of definitions. However, there were some conflicting uses of different terms in different sections, and so some of the articles and divisions do have their own, but we were trying to get a unified section of definitions that apply across the board. Article 2 directly incorporates additional elements of the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code and retains largely unaltered the language from the existing weeds and littering article of our current Chapter 14. Article 2 is basically subdivided into 5 divisions. 1, which is general, which applies to the entire article. 3 specific subject matter divisions, and 1 division that pertains specifically to the enforcement procedures. The enforcement procedure that will apply to the entire provision of all the provisions of the article is a modification of the existing enforcement procedure from our existing weeds and littering article. The intent of doing so is of directly incorporating more sections of the International Property Maintenance Code in this manner is basically to allow the town to enforce these provisions through our municipal court in a shorter time frame than is specified by the Property Maintenance Code itself. And so you will also note changes to the requirements for warning notices that reflect the regulatory intent of expediting the municipal court process. Costs incurred for enforcing and remediating violations of this article can be collected through a debt collection agency if not paid to the town within 60 days of issuing a bill. Article 3 retains largely unaltered the elements of the existing blighted and deteriorated properties ordinance, and also houses the proposed structures unfit for occupation or use ordinance. By way of explanation, these 2 ordinances are derived from the state law's slum clearance and redevelopment chapter. Division 1 of the proposed ordinance comes directly from Part 1, structures unfit for occupation or use, by the same name, and Division 2, blighted or deteriorated properties, comes from Part 2, acquisition of vacant properties. I point this out in order to clarify the similar yet distinct regulatory purposes of these 2 elements of the same state law, both of which municipalities are able to adopt by ordinance. So by doing it, we are not in conflict. They are not mutually exclusive in that fashion. Structures unfit for occupation or use would allow the town to require repair or demolition of a structure based on whether the estimated cost of repairing the structure would exceed 50% of the value of the structure. In other words, repair would be required if the cost of repair is 50% or less of the value of the structure, whereas if it exceeds 50%, we would require demolition. In the interest of transparency, the percentage of valuation is left up to the municipality to adopt and is not specified in the enabling state law. However, staff would recommend that if the board adopts this provision, that a 50% valuation be utilized, as this is common in other communities and is considered best practice based on this statute. And lastly, Article 4 retains largely unaltered the elements of the existing lot clearing ordinance, with the only exception to this being the addition of notice by publication as an acceptable means of notifying the owner of a violation, this being a more complete adoption of the state law into our municipal code. It is therefore proposed that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen adopt on first reading Ordinance 20-02 to amend Chapter 14 of the Farragut Municipal Code.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
This is thick stuff.
It is. Are we doing anything else tonight? For goodness sake, who made this agenda? Brain dead. Okay.
It was a very
It's
thick
okay.
night.
It's all good. David.
Thank you for your efforts, both of
Hey,
you.
well,
This was
very
a
good
lot.
explanation. Thank you. Thank you.
Very thorough, very thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, with a motion on the floor and a second.
Any people want to speak? Anybody wanting to speak?
No one for this item.
Okay.
Imagine why.
Now ask for a roll call vote by our town recorder.
Hovland. Burnett.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay, let the record show ordinance 20-02 has been approved 5-0 on the first reading. Okay, next will be the town administrator's report.
Mayor, the only thing I needed to report tonight is I know we had a great ribbon cutting at the community center, but it's not quite open, but it will be on February 3rd. So we're looking forward to having folks come in and get some membership cards that are available at that time for the community center. So please give us a call, and that's also when we'll start booking rooms and different things in the center as well. That's all I had to report.
Okay, we've got a town attorney tonight, and I'm not sure if he's got anything to report or not.
Don't have anything.
Nothing at
I mean,
all.
I know
Wow.
y'all want to hear a long report, but I'll pass on it.
Okay, I guess by looking at the audience, we do have some folks that stayed around for the Citizens Forum. And how many we got signed up?
Yeah. Say about 8.
Oh, 8? Okay, great.
First one is Bill Bryant.
Okay, please, before you get up and speak, be sure you've read the protocol on the back of the agenda. And if you can abide by that, then please step up and let's state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Mark leave. Mark left. This is all going to be 5G.
My name is Bill Bryant. I live at 11333 Ford's Cove Lane in the city of Farragut, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to the mayor and the board of aldermen regarding this 5G rollout. I'm sure you all have heard about that, and so I'm not going to try to repeat everything that happened on the night of the 16th, but I am here to I think we've kind of ended up in a situation of unintended consequences that's affecting everybody in terms of the neighborhood. I know there's been discussion about the FCC wanting to set a standard that the United States is leading the world and trying to get implementation of 5G across our country and take a leadership position in that. The state of Tennessee has also passed a law that I would categorize as very friendly to the people who want to do that for their business, and so that has gone into effect, and the Planning Commission has been having to deal with that. I was at their meeting last week. I felt like the commissioners were empathetic to the positions that were presented to them by the many of the neighbors, but I also felt like they were frustrated and had a sense of hopelessness about how to deal with the legislation that they have an obligation to deal with and to pass. The city of Farragut is mostly a residential community. It doesn't have a lot of industry, a lot of different other things. And so when the companies that are trying to carry out this dictate or mission that's set before them for the FCC, they start designing network plans to make a 5G network effective. And of course, most of you all probably know 5G is a much stronger signal, but it doesn't carry as far as a lesser degree of that. The consequences of that are that you have to have many more towers to replicate that in a completed network. And this is where I think the unintended consequences come in. We have many neighborhoods, one that I live in personally, that when it was built, all of our utilities are underground. And so I think that has been probably the intent not only in the city of Farragut, is to do that because aesthetically it just makes a more attractive environment for living. Unfortunately, in order to meet this, we are facing within our communities the construction of at least one tower, but the problem being is that there are more than one provider of 5G networks. And so we could likely end up dealing with a petition from 4 or 5 different other companies wanting to replicate the same network for 5G, which I don't think I have to go into a lot of detail about that. That is going to be a very unaesthetic situation for our community that all of you have expressed tonight support for the community, want to make it a great place to live, and it is. You know, I mean, I've been here about 5 years, and Farragut's a very nice place to live in. I just think we're going to start, when this continues to roll out, we're going to get into a situation that is going to be undesirable. And so that's the main. There are many other factors that other people talked about regarding health, and I'm sure some people will talk about that and other things. But one thing that I would like to encourage tonight, we've gone through the Planning Commission things. That I get the picture that Planning Commission doesn't have a whole lot of room to breathe, and so they're going ahead and going to begin handling these applications that are made to them. But now is the time, I think, and I would like to encourage the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to consider and pass a resolution requesting the support of our state legislatures on amending the law that was passed for the implementation of this network across the state to address communities like Farragut that are predominantly a residential community. And because of the spread of the network, I think we'll have a disproportionate share of a number of towers that have to be put up to support this network. And I know these things take time, but I think that if we allow this to go like it's rolling out right now, 5 years down the road, we're going to wake up and find out that it has had an adverse effect on our property values for the homeowners in the community. It certainly is going to have an adverse effect on the aesthetics of our community. And all the things we do to bring people in town are going to show on the bad side of town with all of our cell towers. So I appreciate the opportunity to address you tonight. I'd like to encourage you to elicit the support of our state legislators and with Tom Burchett, where he's appropriate on his federal position that he's in, to try to see if there can be some appropriate amendment passed to the state law to deal with predominantly residential communities like Farragut, so that we're not having a disproportionate effect of the aesthetics of this network. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you, and I appreciate your consideration of my requests.
Thank you, Bill.
Our next speaker is Laura Squires.
Hello, guys. My name is Laura Squires. I live at 236 Woodland Trace Drive. Just real quickly, I want to make sure that you've each seen a visual of the tower that is proposed to be presented at 11221 Sonia Drive. Have each of you actually seen a visual? May I walk my cell phone by you?
I've seen one.
I'm fine. I
I'll
haven't.
see it.
I'll look at it.
You've not seen it? You've not seen it?
I have not seen
Okay.
it.
There's just two of us sit on the planning commission and
Okay.
and
You see that thing? I don't think it's going to impact the property value of that house.
And that's the
Do you
problem.
guys have any concept of how that's going to affect the property value of that house or the houses next to it? Okay, I'm here because I feel violated as a U.S. citizen, I feel violated as a citizen of Tennessee, and I feel very violated as a citizen of Farragut. I moved here because it's pretty. This is a proliferation that we do not even have a concept of what it's going to be. So my couple of challenges for you guys tonight. Today, I was able to get from the very helpful Town of Farragut Planning Office a look at where the fiber optic lines have been approved to go so that we know where they're planning to hit us with all of these towers. This is an image of Sonia Drive, Woodland Trace Drive, as well as Heron Road and all of the houses involved. I'd like to challenge you all to publish this in the Farragut Press and the Farragut Focus and put a red dot on every lot where they're going to put a cell phone tower. People don't understand what's about to happen to them. They think their phone's going to work better. They don't know that they're going to get a tower in their yard. There are things we could have done.
Did you have one with the tower? Because I've not seen a plan that shows me where the towers are. I've only
Which
seen a
other
plan
tower?
that shows me where the wires
Where the
are
fiber
going.
optic is. But that's
Yeah.
going to tell you where they intend to go with the towers. Would I be correct?
we don't know what the spear will be because,
Yeah.
to start off with, unfortunately,
My frustration.
due to the topo of our town, I talked with the mayor out in Arizona, and he said that they're very flat, and these things will reach
And may I
long
ask,
ways.
can we hold my timer while Ron Williams talks?
Yeah. But here, where we've got a lot of mountains, a lot of trees, a lot of buildings, then it's going to be short course. So it's to say that you can spot where each one of them would be, I think would be probably not good to do because
Understand?
you have no clue. We have no clue. I don't think even Verizon or any of the rest of them have a clue
Well, that's-
until they draw the spear.
That's my frustration is, do they have a clue? Do they have a fully realized plan? And if they do, can we ask for it? Are we allowed to do that? and we don't have to because I know we can't ask for justification that you need one there, but can we ask for the full plan?
Of where their towers are located
Where they're
right
going
now?
to be located, where the plan is, because obviously, we needed an engineer the other night. The guys that were here were useless.
May I ask that the timer be held again, please?
I can't just pause it. It starts over. So I actually probably have more minutes than if I just paused it.
We'll be fair, I promise. We're not going to cut you off. You're good.
You're good.
Bringing up questions that we're asking, and so that's my struggle is, I don't know what I can ask and what I can't ask for.
I think we can ask for anything. Yeah, that depends on what they give us.
And also, I hear that TDOT is requiring them to co-locate at all possible, and they have to justify how they can't. Are they held to a different standard than the rest of us, or is TDOT held to this law, or does TDOT, are they a different entity and they're treated differently? Because I spoke to the engineer there, and he said that if it doesn't meet the clear zone, if there's a fire hydrant, that's why they're putting them off Kingston Pike and in our right-of-way, right off of Kingston Pike. That's why all those ones that you think would be on Kingston Pike are right off of Kingston Pike. So
It's a very
really frustrated.
the act that they passed in 2018 has many provisions in it, and so obviously we look at the ones that pertain to us. I think we'd have to go back and look through if there's something different that the state's allowed to do that we're not allowed to do. But we can certainly look at that. I know Tom's got it, and maybe we can find it before we leave tonight.
And the other question I have is, do we have anyone who's capable of comparing what the FCC has passed and what the state has passed? And if there's any leeway that the FCC has that the state has shut down, can we move to the FCC level? I tried to read the rule. I really did. I started crying. I can't do it. I don't have the technical expertise to understand this stuff. But I know that, and then I wonder, just because they're putting the tower in, is it going to be turned on? If it isn't, can we delay the implementation in our neighborhoods until they've fully outfitted the commercial areas? Why do we need them in the neighborhood? Can someone come explain to us what their end goal is?
Well, I mean, all we can do is try to get ourselves educated, and if they'll help us get educated, but I'm not sure you want the people that are putting the towers up to be the one to educate you.
I would argue
So I
no.
think what you might want to do is, we have contact with some experts that we use from time to time or have used in the past who helped us draft the ordinance that we have, half of which is no longer effective because it violates the state statute. So it certainly would be worthwhile having someone come and talk to us about it. But, I mean, I don't think you're going to get anywhere by thinking you're going to live by the federal law and not have to live by the state law.
Well, that's what.
Again, I'm going to say this, you all have heard me say this 1,000 times, but the people out here haven't. The municipality, town of Farragut, and every other municipality in this state only has the powers that it is given by the state of Tennessee. It's a creature of the state of Tennessee. It doesn't have powers in and of its own.
Yep.
And we can't do things that are contrary to what the state law says. We don't have the power to do that. I mean, we can do it. A lot of people can do things. You can do anything you want, but somebody might come stop you. And my job as the town attorney is to make sure we don't do things that the law doesn't authorize us to do. That's part of my job, is to keep us out of trouble, not to say, oh, yeah, I'm mad about this, and we're going to go act like somehow we're going to change what the federal government and the state government has done. Now, we can go lobby, and we can go try to have an impact. And believe it or not, a lot of people have been working on this for a long time and have been expressing our dissatisfaction to the state government for some period of time. But, I mean,
Well, my question is, if there is leeway there's a difference between what the state has passed and what the FCC has passed, we at least have that to say, okay, this is what the FCC is requiring, you're requiring something tighter. Can you at least just move it to, but I don't even know if that's legitimate or if there's anything to be gotten there.
You won't get anything there.
So, just a question. It can be for anybody in the audience, actually, as well up here. So, and this is my ignorance. I've not been privy to a lot of the G5 discussion. But what do our state representatives like Jason Zachary? Have they landed on?
Oh, yes, I have his statement.
Okay. So does he support this?
Let me pull. Do you have it, Louise, that you can pull real quickly?
I don't have Jason's, I have the,
I can
I
get
got
it.
an email from, oh crap, that's not the one I'm looking for.
Just
And
one
then
minute.
Dr. Briggs, has he made any statements?
Yes, he has.
I mean, you don't have to
Well,
read it to me. Are they in
I'm
favor?
sure
Or are
there's
they
going to be
against
a
it?
lot
Or?
of people over there in
Yeah.
Nashville now who are going to want to amend the act. It's been on the books for 2 years
Yeah.
now. And so I think with people, and this resolution is a good idea. The more people that speak out, the more possibility it might get somebody to act over there to do something substantially more
Yes,
reasonable.
yes.
I mean, just out of curiosity, what's your general impression? They're either for it or against it, right?
Well, it's not a matter of for or against. It's a matter of it needs to be amended to change
Well, who
it.
passed it? Did Jason help pass it?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so I'm confused. So
if-
he obviously. Okay, well that's a problem.
May I,
Okay,
may I speak?
go ahead.
You want to go back on the clock?
I was
I'm
answering
just
your
trying to understand
question.
the-
I spoke with Jason Zachary as soon as this came up immediately on Friday. He called me back. He shared with me, and if I'm getting this to the best of my recall, that it passed the House with no Democrats and no Republicans dissenting. And I said, did anybody understand it? He says, as someone who lives in the heart of Farragut, I share your deep concerns about the potential placement of cell phone towers throughout our community. I've been in constant communication with David Smoke and the town of Farragut administrator for the last few weeks. We are working on language for me to carry as legislation in an effort to empower Farragut to have some level of control over the tower placement throughout the community. The challenge, however, is the FCC has dictated so much of what we can and cannot do at a state and local level. We have a fight on our hands.
Senator Blackburn.
I have not contacted her because she's a little busy this week. But
Well.
don't think I'm not going to.
You know what? I don't care.
And if I'm back on the clock, can we pause if we're going to discuss?
I was just curious. It's okay. Just final.
Finish.
This final. I was just curious, like what since the FCC obviously is federal and we have 2 senators. I was just curious. If
I'm
anyone
all
can tell
about
me-
getting the 2 senators. They're just a little busy. They're
We're not going to
probably,
look at it right now.
Right,
They're
I'm not asking
probably
him
a
to-
little more worried about
what
other
I'm
things
asking
right
is,
now.
let me rephrase my question. All I'm asking is, what is your impression of their stance on the FCC's decision to do this?
my impression on anyone's stance who does not fully understand this regulation is that their impression is like most other people's, that they will say, oh, 5G, my phone will work faster.
Okay.
And then when you explain it and they say, oh, 5G, 8 out of 10 homes may have a tower in their yard, people's opinions begin to change. First, they don't believe you. Then they read a little bit. Then they say this is bad. And then they don't understand. Other than people who don't care. Some people want it. Maybe it's more important to you to get whatever it is you're downloading at 3 a.m. faster than to protect your neighborhood and your property value. But I can't speak for everyone, but that's what I understand.
But I'm not sure that they voted on, FCC is not the same thing. FCC is their own commission. They're empowered by the Telecommunications Act of 1996 to implement rules, and that's how they implement the rules. It's
Yeah, but have the senators not stepped up and said your rule's
And that's-
stupid?
But
or-
this has just started to undergo implementation. Only 31 cities in the U.S., according to Verizon's website, are under this right now. Why do they need to come to Farragut to be number 32? No one understands this. If you live in a large metropolitan area like downtown Nashville, downtown Memphis, even downtown Knoxville, you're not going to notice it. They're going to be little things step up on top of buildings. If you live on Sonia Drive, you're going to notice it, and your property value could be affected.
We're
and
not disputing that, okay?
I just wasn't sure that the Alderman Board, and I know that the 2 of you heard everything last Thursday night. I'm not sure all of you did. And I
was here, listened to all the times, and we fully understand that we are out of the equation,
Okay.
other than getting people like
there's more we
Zachary
can
to
do.
go and fight for us.
There's more we can do. And if I may, may I go back on the clock and finish my time? Because I don't want to hesitate. Everybody has stayed probably to hear this.
And you all will be heard, so please
And that's what I was going to
continue.
ask. And for anybody who is here listening, we've got to call Tim Burchett, his Knoxville number 523-3772. We've got to call Jason Zachary, 615-741-2264. We've got to call Richard Briggs, 615-741-1766. But I do believe, and I'm not a lawyer, but I spent a lot of time with someone who is very knowledgeable in right-of-way, sitting and reading this. First concern is I can't get a copy of physical wording of what the right-of-way is. It may be attached to some of the plat maps that are in the Register of Deeds office, but I want something in writing that says this is the right-of-way and what specific utilities are granted permission in that right-of-way, or is it even listed as utilities? Perhaps it is listed as specific utility carriers. No one yet has been able to produce that for me to even understand the language. Additionally, as I understand the FCC guidelines, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert, but I spent a lot of time today with someone who's very knowledgeable on this. And as I read the FCC guideline with that individual, it says that a municipality can restrict these to 6 cubic feet in volume of the antenna and maximum of 28 cubic feet of volume at base. Okay? Does that thing look like if you cut it in pieces, it would fit in 6 cubic feet of volume? The picture I showed you, does it look like it would fit in 6 cubic feet of volume? It could be really tall and really skinny, or it could be really short and really fat, but that's not a ton of volume. So I feel like what was passed at the Planning Commission last week was a pass, because we are afraid Verizon or whoever else comes next will challenge us, but I don't feel like we've done all we can do to protect ourselves based on the FCC guidance, and this is coming from the FCC guidance. Additionally, there are alternatives. No alternatives have been proposed. They, as I understand it, from someone in my next door, they spoke to Verizon, and this is all hearsay, that is to service the demand of high school, Costco, Turkey Creek. Have they even approached Costco, Turkey Creek, maybe Pinnacle, Regal, say, hey, could we put a bigger tower on yours? Why do we have to stick these towers in people's yards? I do not feel like alternatives have been explored, and I feel like there were things we could do as a planning commission last week that maybe we weren't aware we could do, and we didn't do it. Lastly, if I may, we're in a rock and a hard place. If I understand it correctly, the next meeting is February 20th. I don't want to come home and have somebody spray painting in my yard, as I understand others have done. Saw a company named Global Telecommunications rolling through my neighborhood with their door open clocking meter on Monday. I need you all to pass a resolution to go to the state of Tennessee and ask for an opt-out, or at least a provision to wait until we understand the settlement of the Ninth Circuit Court in California, or anything to protect this out of residential areas. I think it's a really simple proposal. Put it in the business districts, keep it out of the residential areas, and keep it away from our schools. That's all I needed of you guys. Does anyone have a question of me?
The Oak Ridge just updated their ordinance, and they call micro wireless facility means a small wireless facility that does not exceed 24 inches in length, 15 inches in width, and 12 inches in height. I'm not sure if that measures out to 6 cubic feet, but it sounds like it. So
Close, isn't it?
2 by 1.5 by 1, so. And then the exterior antenna, if any, does not exceed 11 inches in length. So they have some delineation, and I think I haven't got a chance to talk to the right-of-way expert, the lady that developed this, but she developed it based on state law and the FCC, according to Wayne.
You're talking about the unit,
Yes.
not the pole.
No, the small
Different
wireless facility. Yeah.
I understand. And if I may add one last thing, because I had sent this to Vice Mayor, of what local governments can do. And again, I don't think we've exercised all the power that we do have. We aren't supposed to lay down like a possum in the road and let this hit us. We're not. We're supposed to stand up for our property value and for our safety. This says local governments can condition approval of the new 5G cell construction upon compliance with state and federal environmental review. While a local government cannot add new requirements for environmental review, it can ask for the necessary federal review has been done. Given the mounting evidence that the FCC's radio frequency limitations federal review should include an evaluation of adequacy of these limits. We didn't ask for that I heard. in the meeting.
He told us that they had done, that they had
Okay,
complied.
but
with
we
all
didn't
the
see
federal-
it. Did we see it? Did we ask it be submitted to the town of Farragut?
Our ordinance actually requires that they submit something to us saying that they have met all federal and state guidelines.
Okay, did we specifically see this level of documentation? Do we
That was
have a
on the
copy of it?
application, if I'm not mistaken.
It would be on there,
Yeah.
Okay.
but the fact of the matter is, if, to understand and to evaluate their engineering, we'd have to hire our own engineers to come in and determine whether what they were telling us was truthful.
Well,
That's
it just-
basically what, they tell us what they tell us. We either accept their word or we hire an expert to go evaluate their engineer and see whether or not they're telling the truth.
Well, it just seems that they're presenting the idea perhaps of these smaller towers, and what I'm showing you on a picture that is the data they apparently submitted to Town of Farragut, in my opinion, and I'm, again, not a math teacher, that doesn't look like it would fit in 6 cubic volume to me.
Again, that's a unit, not the tower itself, okay? That's the
Oh, no, that's 28 cubic feet for the unit that sits on the ground. It is 6 cubic feet in volume for the part that ascends. So if you can take that apart and get it 6 cubic volume feet, I'd be impressed, because that looks to me like it would be far greater volume.
what's in the backpack, is that what? The giant backpack on the side of the pole, is that what you're talking about?
No, the pole itself, if you disassembled the antenna components, as I understand it, would have to be 6 cubic feet in volume. That would be very thin and very tall.
The way it was explained to me was, you see some that look like a, just an oblong piece, okay? And then you see some that go, and it's vertical, and then you see some that are horizontal. And I think that's what they're talking about. I don't think it references the actual pole that it's put on, if what the guy told me is true, so.
And if I may just add one last thing, because we just talked about the nuisance ordinance here at the very last end, and while I was waiting to speak to you guys, I pulled up the housing and urban development classification related to cell phone towers, and it actually says that located within the easement serving high voltage transmission line radio or TV tower or cell phone tower. And it has to do with some conditions that have to be met if the tower could fall and affect a property. But I do find that under the section listed hazards and nuisances. So just thought that was interesting considering we just discussed nuisances.
Yeah, it is.
I thank you for your time and thank you for listening to us.
Can I ask a question on the board? Have we ever historically done a resolution to the state asking for anything, or
Something
is that
specific, though.
just my ignorance? But
Yeah, we got
okay, so that is a possibility.
that, 'cause
Okay.
We have something very specific, and I'm not entirely sure we have something specific. I got an email from Jennifer Roach today. You guys all received
Yeah.
it. The realtors are, and KAR are also working to try to figure out if there's any local control that we can get back. So there's a variety of people working on it, but I don't mind doing a resolution, but we need specific recommendations in our resolution, would we not?
Well, Alderman, I've been speaking with other city managers across the state about this very issue because we're all dealing with it in very many cities across the state. One of the things that everyone is talking about as issues are construction, the issues of as it's under construction, how long it takes for construction, wanting to have a timely process for that, not leaving holes in the ground for months on end and not finishing up the job. The other one is trying to limit the number of poles by requiring co-location where possible. I think that's going to be a huge thing. We already have poles that are in the ground all over town. If you're able to utilize those poles and just place equipment on them, that is going to significantly decrease the number of these poles that we have all over the place. So those are a couple of things. The other is aesthetics, and I think we have some pretty strong aesthetic language in our ordinance. Unfortunately, we can't enforce that based on the state law that has trumped our ordinances. So for us, those are the three things that I've been talking to Mr. Zachary about, and hopefully he can work on some language to craft that and get a bill put before the Tennessee General Assembly here soon.
Okay. So do we need a resolution to?
I was just curious about what,
Put it out, more support? I mean, I have to be honest with you guys, you've got to all be in talking to your legislators. There's more power from more people. I can call up Jason and say, oh, my people are frustrated with this, and it doesn't mean anything. When 100 people call him to tell him, she's right, we're upset about this, it has more impact. So yes, I'm happy to do what I need to do. I'm still on a learning curve with this, and it's very frustrating to be stuck in a situation where you feel like you're not getting all the information you need. I can see, I'm right there with you, listening to these guys not give us the information we need to make we don't have all the information, like you're saying, 6 cubic feet, and I'm looking at Oak Ridge's ordinance, because I just printed that out on Friday, and realized, okay, we need to amend our ordinance per the state law, so we know what's in it, and then start really working with other planning people that are further down this road, so that we can understand what are they doing. What are they doing that's, because I talked to the TDOT guy, and he says, well, we require co-location everywhere. Well, why can't we require co-location? Why are you allowed to require co-location and we're not?
If I may, I was just going to suggest maybe we should hear everybody and then see if you guys are willing to do a resolution.
Okay.
I also spoke to Jennifer Roach today.
Come up to,
It's not necessarily a good thing.
Can't hear you.
I get it. Just
Okay.
listen to everybody and then let's see if we do a resolution.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can, if we want to do a resolution, we would need to do that at the next meeting, so we can prepare it and get it prepared. So
yeah, we
if the
can't do it
board's-
tonight, folks. That's
If the board's willing to do it, I'll be
not in
happy
the cards.
to get that prepared.
So we can listen to what the content should be, correct?
All right, our next speaker is Marcus Stairwood.
Hi, it's Marla.
Marla,
Sorry,
I'm
my
sorry.
handwriting must have been scribbling.
last name, ma'am?
Marla Stairwood, and I'm at
Oh, yeah.
1224
Okay.
Snyder School Road. And thank you for the opportunity to address you all tonight. It looks like you all share a lot of the same concerns and confusion that the general public does. Many of us have been researching this for several years. And quite frankly, I understand the concerns about the aesthetics, property values. I get it. And I'm right there with everybody else. But I don't care what color it is or what it looks like if it causes cancer. The global studies from scientists around the world have said the people that this will affect are fetuses, small children, the elderly, and people with autoimmune challenges. Those are the people it's going to strike first. But it will affect everyone. There are good studies out there to show you what's going on. I would encourage you to at least look up Dr. Sharon Goldberg, who's spoken at Senate Council hearings, has TED Talks. She's done lots of research on this, and she gives a very simple example of how these towers are going to affect us and how these antennas in our front yards will affect us. Blood sugar levels are very easy to take a sample of before or after exposure, and the studies are astounding. If we have an epidemic of diabetes today, does it have anything to do, we don't know, they are still researching, with the generations of the technology that we have today? And if so, then if it's, what else is to follow? If it's diabetes, do we also have heart disease and other illnesses, cancer, that we can attribute to exposure to these? And if so, I don't want that in my front yard. I really don't want it in my community at all, but I understand that it's coming. Can we keep it to the commercial areas? Can I say my home is safe? I won't go to Starbucks today because I'm not going to sit in that radiation, but can I at least keep my home safe? And can we keep it away from our schools, as Laura said? She brought up a very good point. There are still things that local communities can do, and I would beg you to look into that. The local communities can't say we want more environmental review, but we can force the hand of these tech companies coming in and ask them to show us the required environmental review. If they can't show us that, we can at least use that as a delay. And I hope that you all do know that the FCC approval was on a study done 23 years ago, before these technologies ever existed. So we have really good reasons to not allow this to come on through our communities, especially with antennas in our front yards. So thank you.
Yeah, what you're saying, California that's part of what they're
It's part of what they're doing.
looking at. So I think that that'll probably be the first one that gets tested, but maybe there'll be something positive come out of that.
And I know we probably need to take this to a state level, what can be done about Tennessee joining a lawsuit like that California is involved in?
Montgomery County, I mean, there's, most of the ones that I've seen are cities and counties that certainly larger that have the wherewithal. But the suits have already been filed. I don't know if it helps to join one or not, but the one, Montgomery County, Maryland is the one that filed the suit about updating the RF guidelines. So and then they consolidated that with the California and Washington cities that have been filed suit over the shot clock and all over the permit fees.
Right.
Because when they dump these applications in, you basically have to drop everything and look over these, and the permit fees do not cover our staff time, and our staff is already backed up, which is low, not the biggest point. So Montgomery County, Maryland, that's the one to keep an eye on, but they consolidated them all together in one case. I don't know how long Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals cases take, so.
I think the argument's set for May.
Okay.
So they've already briefed it out there. And there's, I would say, at least 100 different municipalities that are, I mean, big municipalities that are involved and parties in that proceeding. And if they prevail, then what they'll have to do is the FCC started a study in 2013 to review what they had concluded in 1996 about cell towers. And they stopped. They just stopped doing the study and issued this order that ordered everybody to let these 5G things go fast. Well, then the lawsuit got filed, basically claiming that that it was unlawful to issue that order when, in fact, they hadn't done the study that only they can do according to the law. I mean, the statutes provide that municipalities, state governments can't regulate on the basis of RF if they meet the FCC standards. So.
Wasn't that in August? Didn't that happen in August when they slapped the FCC's hands basically and said, you've got to complete this study?
They've done
But
that.
since, but that was my understanding. I'll have to look that up and get back to you. But I thought in August.
That's what the lawsuit's about.
In August,
to force them to.
That sort of rolled through, and then the lawsuit. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mike Mitchell.
Good evening. My name's Mike Mitchell. I live in the Brixworth community, and I want to say that last Thursday we talked a lot about what we cannot do. And I remember in 2004 that First Utility District was going to put two 15 million gallon sewage basins on Concord Road. There's a retirement center where those sewage basins were going to go. A friend of mine who's passed away was the president of our homeowners association. We decided that was a public health hazard. We knew that there were sinkholes where they'd put the sewage basins. We formed a citizens group. Tom Russell was an alderman. He was one of the members. He came up with the name for the group, Concerned Citizens for Responsible Growth and Development. I contacted then Mayor Ford, and he said, it's a utility. We can't do anything. Contacted Knox County Commission, said, we can't do anything. It's a utility. Contacted Jamie Woodson, who was the state senator at the time. Sorry, it's a utility. Contacted Tim Burchett, who was then a state representative. He said, brother, I can't help you. It's a utility. There are no sewage basins there. We stopped it. Of course, we had to recruit 300 people. We had to go to all the board meetings at First Utility District. 2 of the 3 board members resigned. Managing director resigned. They decided they didn't need those sewage basins. 4 years later, Loudoun County built a sewage plant. We can make a difference. I want to hear what we can do. I would like on the next agenda in the Mayor and Board of Aldermen that we craft the resolution. Now, Richard Briggs, who I reached out to, he said, if you will please have the Mayor and Board of Aldermen craft a resolution creating a local option where towns like Farragut that are suburban, very dense, and already have multiple high-speed internet choices to where they could opt out. Now, there are a couple of compromises that we haven't talked about. I'm in the technical world, and very briefly, the phone you have is a 4G. It's 700 megahertz. These antennas that will go in your front yard, and there may be 3, 4, 5 of them, they are 28 gigahertz. Now, Dr. Deborah Davis is a world-renowned epidemiologist. She is the founder of the Environmental Health Trust. She advises that you not use 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. She says if you do, have it 20 feet away from you. Well, these 3 antennas in my front yard are going to be 30 feet away from me. This is going to hurt property values. It's going to hurt health. So if we can find a way to help our state legislatures, help them help us. I know your hands are tied, but remember, you can't stop a utility, but we already have. We've done it before. It takes hundreds of people, and I appreciate everybody coming out and staying so late. There is a compromise. First thing, 5G is about data transmission. What you don't recognize is that when you're not downloading your Netflix film, you're going to shift back to 4G. 5G works with 4G. 5G can have a very tall antenna, and it can go a long way with a lower data transmission rate. These ones that'll go on our front yard have very high data transmission rates. First thing, you folks don't have 1 gigabit in your home. Well, some of you do. You have new homes. But here's the thing. Your 4G is plenty fast enough to download a Netflix film. This is massive overkill. The theoretical high that you can get from the small cell 5G, these 28 gigahertz antennas, is 10 megabits. We have no need for that in a residential area. I mean, in Oak Ridge, they have a 10 megabit network, but all the business that I work with are 1 gigabit. The state legislature, when they reviewed this, it was so technical, it was written by lobbyists for the cellular industry, they didn't understand what they were doing. They could have protected us. They didn't. So what I would, and one other thing that's very important. Everybody asks me, why? Why is this, what's this about? It's not about cell phones. I may need to go over for just a second. Here is what they really want. They want you to get a router in your home, and that router is going to be so fast that you'll drop spectrum and TDS. Another thing I want you to think about that's very important. Until this new legislation that's come out, this idea of putting it in the right-of-way, so on Virtue Road, there are antennas there, they pay royalties. Well, I'm going to have a pole in my front yard with 3 to 4 to 5 antennas, going to harm my property value, harm my health, but I will be paid no royalty. This is a taking. It's an eminent domain taking. I suggest we find a way to work with our state legislators, slow it down. The problem will solve itself. It will collapse under its own weight. I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mike. Next.
Our next speaker is Julie Cotreau. Julie?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
She was Woodland Trace, and she was very similar to my comments as far as opposition to Woodland Trace.
All right, Ms. Christofferson.
Carol, can you hear me? Carol Christofferson, 11320 Gates Mill Drive in Farragut, 37934. Last Thursday night, I was here when the Planning Commission voted to allow MCI Verizon to put in some 11 poles. And on Friday afternoon, I was told that they called LCUE to get out and start marking the properties. And on Tuesday, Monday was a holiday. Tuesday, LCUB was in my yard on Gates Mill Drive in Sweetbriar, and they were marking up every single yard in Sweetbriar. My urgency with you tonight is everything that everyone has said. No one here is an alarmist. No one here is wearing a tin hat. You all are there to protect this community. And I don't want to hear another word about you're wringing your hands that you can't do something. Even if it's illegal, you have to stand up and you have to say, cease and desist until all of what we just heard is straightened out. Don't let those lines go in until we know that it's safe.
Carol, I appreciate that you're saying cease and desist, which is, I'm not entirely sure we can do that. But we all took an oath of office. We swore to obey the laws of the state of Tennessee and the Constitution of the state of Tennessee and the laws of the United States and the Constitution of the United States. I take that oath very seriously. I will do everything I can in my power to figure out what we can do, but I will not disobey a law.
There are times when you have to stand up, and the tiny little town of Farragut is standing up. This thing was not thought through. It was based on, if you look at the composition of the FCC board, it's a bunch of people who work for the telephone companies. And I'm tired of that. I'm tired of feeling like everybody's in it for nothing but the money, and we're just, no, please, no, I don't want it tonight. I really don't. Okay, you look so disappointed.
No, I mean, it's just here to help me.
Okay, fine. Yes, you're absolutely fine. Did you get it? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We have to stand up and you have to say something. I know that David's in conversation with Jason. Jason lives, guess where? Across the street from me. We need to know that this is moving faster than what I hear you all are going to do. If it has to be the next meeting that there's a resolution, that's a month, or 2 weeks, sorry. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Please, I take you at your word that you will do something to make sure that you are protecting the citizens of Farragut. We're just a teeny little neighborhood, and we don't want to be run over by the state of Tennessee's lack of consideration, or no, that's not right, Tennessee's state lack of understanding, or the FCC and the carriers because they're just greedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next. Who?
Hayes.
Patrick Hayes.
While Patrick's coming up, can I ask a question real quick? David or Mr. Mayor, has Dr. Briggs reached out to anybody about a resolution?
I did talk with him. I've talked with both of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all in as far as trying to help. So,
Did they ask us to do a resolution? Because apparently Dr. Briggs is telling our constituents to petition us for a resolution, and I've never heard from Dr. Briggs or Jason about this. I mean, I appreciate that, but I definitely want to see it. I don't understand why Dr. Briggs or Jason have not communicated to each one of us that we need to help draft a resolution. So, but that's, I guess, neither here nor there, but I think we should draft a resolution. Go ahead.
Thank you for allowing me to speak here.
Can't speak for that.
Name's Patrick Hayes. I live at 11317 Gates Mill, right across the street from Carroll, and at 37934. I'm basically just going to throw in a few comments because Carroll and Mr. Mitchell have covered pretty much very well aspects of what's going on with this. And of course, we know kind of the history of it. I mean, just to add to what Carol was saying, I mean, these companies wanted to be under the umbrella of a utility so they could do exactly what they're doing right now.
Yeah, we're
And
aware
they
of that.
basically got that legislation through. And I don't think I was never apprised of that information. I think probably a lot of you weren't,
Nope.
that was going on. And it was, a lobbying effort, and they got that. And that gave the FCC the power, once it was able to pass this legislation, putting these cell phone companies and carriers under that utility to have, what they want to do as far as right of way. And the three areas I see where it hits us, the public, and local citizens and of the country, everyone, are basically health. And someone has mentioned that. There's an interesting article on the Scientific American blog by Joel Moskowitz, who's the head of the School of Public. He's the director of the Center of Family and Community Health at the School of Public Health at University of California, Berkeley. And his title is basically, "We have no reason to believe 5G is safe." And he has a lot of references and links in there to good articles about the studies that have been done on 3G and 4G. One thing to note is none of the companies that are pushing this stuff that I could find are subsidizing any kind of studies, health studies on, public health studies on the radiation from the towers. The other thing that's interesting about this, besides health, of course, is the financial, and I think Mr. Mitchell did a good job of covering that in his letter to the editor in the Farragut Press, regarding the 2% to 21%, I think, drop in value of properties that may have these towers near or on their property. That's a lot of money. He has the calculations on that, but that works out to be lots and lots of money and value down the tube, so to speak. The other thing is that I found interesting, I didn't know this, but I guess some people have been on top of this, in the sense that there were multiple class action lawsuits filed against the FCC on this, and there were at least, in one of them there was at least 20 states, 22 states, 60 plus municipalities. Some of them are alliances of municipalities, many cities across the country, everywhere from California to Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Massachusetts, a whole bunch, like I said, 20 plus. Now the interesting thing I saw is when I went and looked at these suits, they are pages of challenges to the actual legality of this. So it looks like it's probably full of holes. And if there were enough people on board wanting to sue them to stop this stuff, it's probably going to happen. And a lot of it has to do with the taking away of the self-determination of particular municipalities and towns. So, and like I say, there are pages of it, and it's all, of course, attacking the legislation. I could read a couple of these, but it says a failure to adopt actual prohibition tests is substantive error. FCC fails to distinguish prohibitions from inconveniences. The Commission never connects the standard it adopts to specific determinations it makes. The Commission cannot use 5G and broadband as justifications for its rulings. The orders improperly use Section 253 to limit local authority over wireless siting. So there's a lot of stuff in here that would affect our local community. And I'm wondering if it would not be helpful if we weren't to join in. It's probably an opt-in kind of class action lawsuit, I would imagine. So maybe we could think about doing something like that. Anyway, that's pretty much all I had to say. I mean, I'm with everyone else. I'm very surprised that there was so little discussion of this technology and the legal side of it and what it was going to do to local communities before we actually had it dumped on us like this.
Yeah, we are
I
too.
appreciate it. Yeah, okay, anyway.
Thank you. Next.
Our next speaker is Tim Eason.
Good evening. I'm Tim Eason. I live at 11312 Gates Mill Drive, and I didn't do near as much homework as everyone else did tonight, but I just want to stand up and be counted that I wholeheartedly concur with the concerns here, and I too have the marked up front yard and am now awaiting the backhoe to show up, and I just wonder how well this has been thought through. Seems like it was almost pushed through in the dark of night. And I understand you guys, I'm guessing everyone here is a town of Farragut resident.
We wouldn't be sitting here if we weren't.
I didn't think you would. So I hope, and I'm sure you share our concerns. And I'm guessing that this has occurred in more places than just Sweetbriar, but.
Well, it's across the state.
Across the state.
Here's the part of the issue. In other places, they don't put the approval of utilities on the planning commission. They handle it all administratively. So people wake up one day and there's a cell tower in their front yard and they not being notified at all. And so by state law, we're allowed to have, well, they encourage us to put the approval of utilities for coordination purposes on your planning commission. So that's why this comes to the planning commission. That's why this was a conversation at the town level.
In other areas, it does not. Like what she said, they, with us, we started doing this, some time back, so we were allowed to continue. The other municipalities that hadn't been doing this, then they have to stick with what they were doing. So you're just, like she said, they're just showing. They get marked. Matter of fact, they don't even go to the planning commission to even talk about putting the lines in, and then they get marked, and then they get put up, and then all of a sudden they're there.
That's it.
And
it's awfully hard to fight after the fact.
I'm sure. And I'm sure they're in a hurry because they see so much concern out there.
This lawsuit, I think, is really making them nervous because it's the health aspects. My hope is that they're required to stop until they do a study. They complete that study.
Well, and it's also my understanding that 5G goes even beyond just our ability to access information, that the automated automobiles are on the way, and this would be necessary for that to happen. So now you're fighting pretty big entities, pretty big lobbyists, and it makes me think of Dances with Wolves when the chief asked Kevin Costner how many are coming, and he said more than the stars in the sky. And, but anyway, I just hope that you guys can search your hearts and do all that you can do to help us out, because we're counting on you. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Trend 2 is our next one.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Alderman. Thank you for your time. I think everyone's pretty much covered all of our concerns. Tron 2, 11101 Sonia Drive. It's the proposed site of one of the residential locations. And after the meeting, I've already gotten lines in my yard. They've already started marking up the driveway. And I just wanted to kind of confirm what everybody else is saying, the health concerns, the fact that we kind of seem like we just rushed into a decision when we still have a lot of questions that need to be answered. And so I'd just like to ask of you, if you would please, for the sake of our children. I mean, I have 4 children. They play right there under right where the tower is supposed to be put up. They won't be able to play there anymore because we don't know. We don't know what the health effects are. And I don't want to take that risk. It seems like we have some power. We don't know what that power is because we only know what we cannot do. Can we investigate? Where do we have power? Where can we at least delay this? Because this is becoming a common problem that you're seeing across the country. So things will start to happen, but why should we just lay down and let them steamroll over us? And can we delay this as long as possible so that we can protect ourselves? And what if new legislation comes out and they've already started digging up our driveways on our roads, and then, like you said, it's much harder to do after the fact. So can we delay this as much as possible? Can we gather information? Can we inform the residents? Because all the residents are not informed on this. They just think, oh, we're getting 5G, this is great, but they don't realize the implications of it. And I think that the community should know so that we can make an informed decision as to whether this is good for us or not. We're not saying no 5G, but we're saying let's keep it out of our residences and away from our schools. And so I would just like to ask you guys to just please do what you can to take your time to really investigate and learn about how this is going to impact us in our town. My family's been here for 35 years, Farragut. And I grew up here. I love this town. I love it because it's safe and it's beautiful. And this is going to make a major impact on that. So thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Bill Harden.
My name is Bill Harden. I live at 613 Glen Willow, Knoxville, Farragut, Tennessee, 37934.
Farragut now. It's no longer Knoxville.
Sorry, Farragut. As of last week now, it's officially Farragut.
Yes, sir, it is.
The mailman knows where to go now. I was at the meeting last Thursday night, and the people that they had from Verizon, they were terrible. We'd ask them a question. You might as well have had a blind, deaf person here. As much as they want to do, as much money as they want to spend, it seemed like they would have sent somebody with some sense. These two guys stood there with their hands in their pockets, and they couldn't find the rear with either hand. You'd ask them questions, and they would go, I don't know. And then if you got an answer out of them, then they said, well, that's up to the contractors. Did they bring a contractor with them? Heck no. Then they had some young guy that had a picture. He'll show us the picture of the pole on the screen up here, and then the guy goes, well, yeah, that's a bad picture. It doesn't really show the imagery compared to that car. Well, if I was going to sell a product, I'd be embarrassed if I had that type of picture to show my product, showing the exact size it's supposed to be. We've got so many questions. Matter of fact, we got more questions than we've got answers from these people, from anybody. I've contacted the governor. I've contacted both of our congressmen. I've contacted Jason Zachary. Was he here last Thursday night, or was he here tonight? Absolutely not. I've contacted Tim Burchett, his office. Was he here? No, they weren't here. I'm sure they're going to try to do what they want to do, but it seems like instead of voting for them next time, we ought to vote for the lobbyists. They're the ones that are making the yes and the no's. They're the ones that are getting stuff done in our legislatures of the lobbyists. The people who've got the money. Evidently, it's not them. And then to hear about these people say, well, gosh, I voted that in. I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, that's an embarrassment. I would rather say anything but that. This is not the first time that a small municipality has ever told someone bigger, higher than us to say, no, we don't want this. Let's stop this. We can do this. When we came to America from England, we fought because we believed in what we were going to do. That ought to be the same thing here. That ought to be the same reason that we voted for y'all. And I know you're going to do your job, and I know that, but I appreciate it. But we just can't take this on the chin. It's not right. We've got more questions, health issues, and so many things. And like I said, after the fact, they're not going to pull it out of the ground. So I ask you tonight, please fight for us. This is a great place. I moved here 20 years ago. I love this place. I fell in love with this place. And it's such a neat place. It's a very special place. Let's keep it that way. I just pray that y'all would help us and talk to these people that I've mentioned tonight. And if we need to file a class action lawsuit, let's file one. I'll open my checkbook up to help out. I'll do what I need to do this. But we've got so many health issues and so many things going against this thing that we should not even have it passed. It's wrong to have this. It's so wrong. So many questions. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for letting me speak tonight.
Bill. That's all? All signed up, okay. Well, we've got our work cut out for us, and so does our staff, so we'll... Do what? Nothing makes my life simple.
We're recording.
So I think those of you who weren't at the meeting kind of got a taste of what it was like last week. We're asking you to pass a resolution to send it to the state of Tennessee. I asked you to publish the map of whose homes are going to be immediately affected, and they're already painting people's yards in the Farragut Press and the Farragut Focus. Put it on a headline. Do a work session where the citizens actually get to understand what has been done to us. Then do an emergency meeting, either of the mayor and board of aldermen, or recall a meeting of the planning commission or the municipal planning commission, because we cannot wait until the next meeting on February 20th. If that clock is ticking and y'all have already kind of given them a, hey, this is going to be okay, we need faster action. So I'm asking you to publish this, tell people what neighborhoods are affected, and then hasten an urgent meeting for a work session, as well as getting a resolution constructed.
February 13th.
Well, they'll do their best as far as getting it as quick as they can. I can't promise you how quick that's going to happen. It's kind of out.
What we can,
Yeah.
we're going to ask for, because he's
Yeah.
got to carry a bill, so it's got to be very specific about what he's going to put in that bill. So I'd rather make sure we're doing what we know, what we think could possibly pass, than to rush through that to, because that's part of it. That's part of it. The other part is we still need to do our legal agreement, because we have agreement that we're crafting for these. So I'm wondering what we can put in those legal agreements to,
Well, again, we have to govern by law.
we do.
We can't do it by motion. I wish we could, but we just can't do it. And
But I'm wondering what we can put in those legal agreements that protect us.
For those of us who are going to be hurt in the next 60 days, it's going to be too late for us.
So I don't think the polls are going up that fast, but we're going to do what we can do and request what we can request. But we are bound by the state and federal laws. And I'm not happy about that. We worked very hard in 2016 and 17 to craft a telecommunications ordinance that did what we needed it to do, which was to protect the residential areas. And the state law turned around and basically gutted it. And we had things like proof of need. You had to be able to prove that it was necessary, and that got removed. So, and if you've ever sat through trying to develop a telecommunication ordinance, it was a lot of work. It was painstaking. It was painful. And then to have all that work just thrown away is, I was very upset when they gutted that in 2018.
you can see why there's nothing that, I mean, we got it all shot down, basically. And, I mean, what can we go after next? We don't know yet. We're just going to have to try to see what we can do. Because I guarantee you that once there's a wind of this in the newspaper and in the TV, then I guarantee you that the telecommunication companies will have their lobbyists down there to fight whatever it is that happens.
Yeah.
No,
no,
it's
a
going
lot.
on. It's all over. Knox City and Knoxville's got them all over. They don't even.
It looks like Chicago, Houston. I couldn't find it.
They're all over.
Yeah, we've got them. We've got them in the city of Knoxville and Knox County. It's not just us. Let me adjourn so we can get to what we're doing, and you can go talk, okay?
You gotta warn me when
Other objection. This meeting is adjourned.
I'll make a